My wife claimed my memory loss was temporary, but I found her hospital discharge papers proving otherwise. Part 1. The first thing I remembered was my wife's voice. "Daniel, can you hear me?" It sounded soft, trembling, almost relieved. When I forced my eyes open, bright hospital lights blurred above me. My head throbbed so badly that even breathing felt painful. A doctor leaned over me with a reassuring smile. "Welcome back, Daniel. You've been unconscious for several days." Days. The word echoed inside my skull. I tried to speak but my throat burned. My wife, Emily, quickly reached for a glass of water and gently lifted my head. "Easy," she whispered. "Don't force it." I looked at her face. She was beautiful, exhausted, and crying. What happened? "You were in a car accident." Fragments flashed through my mind. Rain, headlights, a loud horn, then, nothing. The doctor explained that I had suffered a serious concussion and temporary memory problems. He said I might struggle to remember recent events but should improve with time. Emily squeezed my hand. "See, I told you everything will be okay." Something about her smile felt practiced. I couldn't explain why. 3 days later I returned home. The house looked familiar, yet strangely foreign. Every picture on the wall seemed like someone else's life. Emily patiently walked me through everything. Our bedroom, my office, our wedding photos, our vacations. She acted like the perfect wife. She never left my side. She cooked my favorite meals, even though I couldn't remember they were my favorites. She answered every question with endless patience. Whenever I apologized for forgetting something, she'd kiss my forehead. "It's temporary." She said those 2 words constantly. "It's temporary. Your memories will come back. Don't worry." At first, I believed her. Why wouldn't I? She was my wife. A week later I started noticing small inconsistencies. I asked about my younger brother. Emily hesitated. "You two drifted apart." "Why? I don't really know." That answer didn't satisfy me. Later I found a framed family photo. My brother and I looked incredibly close. Arms around each other's shoulders. Laughing. Those weren't the smiles of 2 men who had simply drifted apart. Another strange thing. Nobody visited. No friends. No coworkers. No relatives. Whenever I asked why, Emily always had an excuse. "They're giving you space. They're busy. They don't want to overwhelm you." It sounded reasonable, yet every day the silence inside the house grew heavier. One afternoon I wandered into my office. The bookshelves were covered in dust. Odd. If I'd been working regularly before the accident, why did everything look untouched? I opened a desk drawer. Empty. Second drawer. Nothing. Third drawer. Locked. "Emily." She appeared almost immediately. "What are you doing?" I found a locked drawer. "Oh." Her smile disappeared for a split second. "There's nothing important in there." "Where's the key?" "I lost it months ago." "Months ago. Convenient." That night I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying tiny moments. Emily watching me more than talking to me. Her answering questions before I finished asking. The way she always changed the subject whenever I mentioned my past. Something wasn't right. I simply didn't know what. The following morning she left for the grocery store. "I'll only be gone an hour." The moment the front door closed, curiosity took over. I searched the garage. Old boxes, Christmas decorations, camping gear, nothing unusual. Then I found a small metal toolbox. Inside, a ring of keys. One looked exactly like the drawer key. I stared at it. Emily said she'd lost it months ago. Why was it here? I unlocked the drawer. Inside were several folders, insurance papers, tax records, medical bills. Then, a sealed brown envelope. It had my name written across it. My hands shook as I opened it. Inside was a hospital discharge summary. Patient name, Daniel Carter. Diagnosis, permanent retrograde memory loss. I froze. Permanent? No, that wasn't possible. The doctor clearly said temporary. Emily repeated it every day. My eyes scanned the page again. Patient has extremely low probability of recovering lost memories. Estimated recovery, unlikely. I felt the room spinning. Why had everyone lied? A car door slammed outside. Emily was back. I hurriedly shoved the papers into my pocket and relocked the drawer just seconds before she walked in carrying grocery bags. She smiled. "Miss me?" I forced a smile. "Of course." She kissed my cheek. For the first time, I wondered whether I even knew the woman kissing me. That evening she cooked pasta. My favorite, apparently. She watched me eat. "So, it's good. You seem distracted." "I'm just tired." She studied my face, almost like she was trying to determine whether I remembered something. I smiled naturally. She finally relaxed. But I didn't. Not anymore. Late that night, after Emily fell asleep, I quietly took the discharge papers from my pocket and read every word. Near the bottom was another sentence. Family has been informed of diagnosis and long-term care recommendations. Family had been informed. Emily knew. She had known from the beginning. Yet every single day, it's temporary, it's temporary, it's temporary. The lie echoed inside my head. Why? Why convince me I'd recover if the doctors believed I wouldn't? People don't tell lies that big without a reason. There had to be something she desperately didn't want me to remember. I looked at Emily sleeping peacefully beside me. Her breathing was calm, her face looked innocent, but now every smile she'd given me felt rehearsed. Every comforting word felt calculated. Every act of kindness carried a question hidden beneath it. Was she protecting me, or protecting herself? I carefully folded the discharge papers and hid them beneath a loose floorboard in the closet. If Emily searched my pockets tomorrow, she'd find nothing. For now, she couldn't know that I knew. Because if my own wife had hidden the truth about my memory, then the truth itself had to be far more dangerous than forgetting. And somewhere inside the life I could no longer remember, someone had a reason to make sure I never remembered it again. The next morning, I acted exactly the way Emily expected me to. Confused, hopeful, dependent. She smiled when I forgot where the coffee mugs were. She gently corrected me when I called our neighbor by the wrong name. Every little mistake seemed to reassure her that I was still the same helpless man who had walked out of the hospital. "You're doing better every day," she said while placing breakfast in front of me. "I hope so. You'll remember everything eventually." Those words nearly made me laugh. Instead, I forced a grateful smile. "I couldn't do this without you." She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "You'll never have to." For a moment, guilt flashed across her face. It was gone almost instantly. But I saw it, that tiny crack in the mask. As soon as Emily left for work, I retrieved the hospital discharge papers from beneath the loose floorboard in the closet. I read every line again. The doctor's signature was real. The diagnosis was clear: permanent retrograde memory loss. No uncertainty, no hopeful language. Only one sentence caught my attention this time. Patient should avoid emotional distress until psychological evaluation is completed. Psychological evaluation? Emily had never mentioned another appointment. She hadn't scheduled one. She hadn't even talked about therapy. Why? I decided to search the house more carefully than ever before. This time, I wasn't looking for photographs. I was looking for secrets. In the garage, behind several paint cans, I discovered an old filing cabinet. Unlike the locked drawer in my office, this cabinet wasn't locked. It contained years of financial records. Mortgage payments, utility bills, insurance statements. Everything looked normal until I found several bank statements. The balance shocked me. Less than $4,000. That couldn't be right. According to my tax records, I owned a successful consulting company. Where had all the money gone? Even stranger, there were dozens of cash withdrawals. $10,000, $15,000, $20,000, every month, always signed by Emily. I frowned. What could possibly require that much cash? I photographed every page with my phone before placing everything exactly where I had found it. If Emily was hiding something, she wouldn't know I had seen it. That afternoon, someone knocked on the front door. I wasn't expecting anyone. When I opened it, an elderly man stood there holding a small package. His expression changed the moment he saw me. "Daniel." He looked as though he'd seen a ghost. "It's really you." "I'm sorry." I hesitated. "Do I know you?" Pain filled his eyes. "No." He gave a sad smile. "I suppose you don't." Before I could ask another question, Emily's car pulled into the driveway. The man's face immediately became tense. Emily stepped out of the car carrying grocery bags. The moment she saw him, all the color drained from her face. "What are you doing here?" Her voice was colder than I had ever heard. The old man looked at me. "I just wanted to know if he was all right." Emily walked between us. "You need to leave. He deserves to know the truth." "Leave." Her voice became even sharper. Neighbors began looking through their windows. The old man sighed. "I'm sorry, Daniel." He handed me the small package. "When you're ready." Emily grabbed the package from my hands before I could even look at it. I said leave. Without another word, the man walked away. I watched him disappear down the street. The silence between Emily and me lasted almost a minute. Finally, I asked, "Who was he?" "No one. He seemed to know me." "He used to work with your father." "What's his name?" Emily looked away. It doesn't matter. Then she carried the package inside. She never gave it back. That night I couldn't stop thinking about the old man. He hadn't looked dangerous. He'd looked heartbroken. More importantly, he had said something Emily clearly didn't want me to hear. He deserves to know the truth. The exact same thought had been haunting me since I found the discharge papers. What truth? I waited until Emily fell asleep. Around 2 in the morning, I quietly slipped downstairs. The package was sitting on top of the refrigerator. Still unopened. I carefully untied the string. Inside was an old leather notebook. The first page read, "For Daniel, if anything ever happens to me, read this before trusting anyone." My heartbeat quickened. Before I could turn the next page, I heard footsteps upstairs. Emily. I quickly shoved the notebook beneath my shirt and closed the package. The footsteps stopped halfway down the stairs. Daniel. I looked up. She stood there in the darkness. "What are you doing?" I forced a yawn. I couldn't sleep. I came down for some water. She stared at me for several long seconds. Then she smiled. "Come back to bed." As I followed her upstairs, the notebook pressed against my chest like it weighed 100 pounds. For the first time since the accident, I wasn't searching for my lost memories anymore. I was searching for the truth. And deep inside, I had the terrifying feeling that once I found it, nothing in my life would ever be the same again. I stayed away from the windows until the black sedan finally disappeared. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe I was letting fear control my imagination. But after everything I had discovered during the past 24 hours, I couldn't ignore even the smallest detail. I returned to Michael's notebook. Most of the remaining pages were filled with dates, account numbers, and names that meant nothing to me. One name, however, appeared again and again. Victor Langford. Who was Victor? A business partner, an employee, an enemy. Beside his name, Michael had written a single sentence. "Never underestimate how far he will go to protect himself." I grabbed my laptop from the office and searched the name online. Within seconds, dozens of articles appeared. Victor Langford was the chairman of one of the largest investment firms in the state. He donated millions to charities, appeared on magazine covers, and regularly spoke about honesty, leadership, and family values. His public image was spotless. Then why would Michael warn me about him? As I continued reading, another article caught my attention. 2 years earlier, Carter Consulting, my company, had announced a major partnership with Langford Capital. I stared at the screen. If my company had worked with Victor Langford, perhaps that was where everything had started. Just then, I heard tires crunch against the gravel outside. Emily. I quickly closed the notebook, returned it to its hiding place beneath the floorboard, and erased my browser history before walking into the kitchen. She entered carrying several shopping bags. "I thought you were working late," I said. "The meeting was cancelled." She smiled, but there was tension in her eyes. "How was your day?" "Quiet. You stayed home." "Yes." She studied my face carefully, almost as if searching for signs that I had remembered something. After a long silence, she nodded. "Good." That single word unsettled me more than anything else she had said all week. Good, because I had stayed home. Or good, because I hadn't uncovered another secret. That evening, while Emily prepared dinner, her phone buzzed on the counter. She was upstairs folding laundry. The screen lit up just long enough for me to read the message preview. Unknown number. Did he remember anything? Before I could react, Emily hurried downstairs, grabbed the phone, and locked the screen. For a brief second, our eyes met. She smiled too quickly. "Just spam." I nodded, but my heart was racing. Someone else was monitoring my condition. Someone expected updates about my memory. Whoever they were, Emily was reporting to them. Dinner passed in near silence. Later that night, after Emily had fallen asleep, I quietly slipped into the hallway and unlocked the front door. If Michael was willing to meet me, I needed answers that couldn't be found inside a notebook. As I stepped outside, a folded piece of paper slid from beneath the welcome mat. I froze. It hadn't been there earlier. Someone had left it after dark. With shaking hands, I unfolded it. Only one sentence was written across the page in black ink. "If you want the truth, come alone tomorrow at 10 a.m. Riverside Park. Don't tell Emily." There was no signature, no explanation, only a small drawing in the corner. A chess knight, the same symbol that appeared on the last page of Michael's notebook. I looked up and scanned the empty street. Whoever had delivered the message was already gone. I folded the note and slipped it into my pocket. Tomorrow could finally give me the answers I had been searching for. Or it could be the biggest mistake of my life. Part 2 continued. I barely slept. The note remained hidden inside my wallet, and every time I closed my eyes, I saw the same words. Come alone. Don't tell Emily. At exactly 7:15 the next morning, Emily walked into the kitchen wearing a navy blue business suit. She looked beautiful. She also looked like a complete stranger. You're up early, she said. I couldn't sleep. Still having headaches. A little. She poured 2 cups of coffee before sitting across from me. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Finally, she smiled. I know this hasn't been easy. No, but we're getting through it together. Were we, or was I simply following the version of reality she wanted me to believe? She reached for my hand. I have another meeting today. I'll probably be gone until this afternoon. My pulse quickened. The note had said 10 o'clock. Perfect timing. I'll be fine, I replied. I know you will. She kissed my cheek, picked up her purse, and walked toward the front door. Halfway out, she turned around. Oh, one more thing. Yeah, if anyone comes by asking questions, don't answer them. I frowned. What kind of questions? She forced a laugh. Oh, you know how reporters can be after an accident. Reporters. No news crew had ever come to our house. The explanation made no sense. Still, I simply nodded. Okay. After her car disappeared, I waited another 20 minutes before leaving. I wanted to make sure she wasn't watching. Riverside Park was only 15 minutes away. The closer I got, the stronger a strange feeling grew inside me. Not a memory, more like an instinct. The walking paths, the old stone bridge, the fountain near the entrance. Everything felt vaguely familiar, as if my mind recognized the place even if my memories refused to return. At exactly 10 o'clock, I reached the fountain. No one was there. Children played near the swings. An elderly couple fed ducks by the lake. Joggers passed every few minutes. Nothing seemed unusual. Then I heard a voice behind me. You came. I turned. Michael Hayes stood beneath a large oak tree. He wore a faded brown jacket and a baseball cap pulled low over his face. He looked exhausted. You shouldn't have come, I said. A faint smile crossed his face. I've been waiting 2 years to hear you say that. What does that mean? It means the old Daniel always worried about everyone except himself. He gestured toward a quiet bench overlooking the lake. Walk with me. We sat in silence for almost a minute. Finally, Michael spoke. The accident wasn't random. I looked at him carefully. I knew you were going to say that. You've already started putting the pieces together. I found the discharge papers. He closed his eyes. So, she really hid them. Why? Michael looked out across the water. Because she believes she's saving your life. I stared at him. Saving me by lying. It's more complicated than that. Then explain it. He took a deep breath. 3 years ago, you uncovered evidence that someone had stolen nearly $40 million through fake investment accounts. I remembered the notebook. Victor Langford. The money belonged to your clients. I felt sick. You tried to expose everyone involved. Everyone. Michael nodded slowly. But before you could go to the authorities, someone found out. And the accident happened. He looked directly into my eyes. Your brakes failed on a mountain road. My blood ran cold. It wasn't an accident. No. Who did it? Michael hesitated. I don't know for certain. You just told me. I know who benefited. Victor Langford. Michael nodded. And maybe someone else. I leaned forward. Emily. He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he reached into his jacket and removed a small flash drive. I've been protecting this ever since your crash. What is it? Everything you discovered before the accident. I stared at the tiny device resting in his palm. Bank records, emails, contracts, maybe even proof. Proof that someone had tried to kill me. Take it, Michael said quietly. If anything happens to me, don't let them bury the truth. I reached for the flash drive. Before my fingers touched it, a deafening gunshot echoed across the park. A bird exploded into the air above us. Michael's eyes widened. Then his body slammed into mine. We both crashed onto the ground. People began screaming. Another shot rang out. The peaceful park instantly became chaos. Michael grabbed my arm. Run. We sprinted toward the trees as terrified families scattered in every direction. I looked back just once. Near the parking lot, a man dressed in black lowered what looked like a rifle and disappeared behind a row of vehicles. This wasn't a warning anymore. Someone wanted us dead, and whoever had pulled the trigger knew exactly where to find us. Branches whipped across my face as Michael pulled me deeper into the woods behind Riverside Park. Don't look back, he shouted. We jumped over a fallen log and ducked behind a cluster of thick bushes. My lungs burned from the sudden sprint. The screams from the park faded into the distance. For several seconds, neither of us spoke. Michael carefully peeked through the trees. I think we lost him. What just happened? I whispered. They found us faster than I expected. Michael looked at me with a grim expression. The people you were investigating. I don't even remember investigating anyone. I know. He lowered himself against the trunk of an oak tree and took a deep breath. But they don't know what you remember. As long as they're uncertain, you're a threat. My phone suddenly vibrated. Emily. My heart skipped a beat. Michael immediately grabbed my wrist. Don't answer. What if she's worried? What if she's checking whether you're still alive? His words sent a chill through me. The phone stopped ringing. A second later, another call came in. Emily again. Then a text message. Where are you? Another message appeared almost instantly. You left without telling me. Then another. Please answer me. I stared at the screen. Was she genuinely worried, or was someone standing beside her, waiting for confirmation that I hadn't escaped? I have to know if I can trust her, I said. Michael shook his head. Not yet. He reached into his pocket and handed me a folded newspaper clipping. It was dated nearly 3 years earlier. The headline read, Local businessman survives brake failure on mountain highway. There was a photograph of my wrecked SUV. It was almost unrecognizable. The front end had been crushed beyond repair. I couldn't understand how anyone had survived. That was your first accident, Michael said quietly. I looked up. First. He nodded. The one that destroyed your memory happened 6 months later. I felt the world tilt beneath me. There were 2 accidents. Yes. Emily told me there was only one. I know. Why would she lie about that? Michael didn't answer. Instead, he pointed toward the article. Read the last paragraph. I scanned the faded print. The police had ruled the brake failure a mechanical defect despite an independent mechanic insisting the brake line had been deliberately cut. The investigation had been closed due to insufficient evidence. My hands began to shake. So someone really tried to kill me. Michael nodded, slowly. And when that failed, everything became much worse. What happened after that? You became obsessed. With proving it. With exposing everyone involved. He sighed. You trusted almost no one, except me. A sharp pain exploded behind my eyes. For a split second, I saw a flash of memory. Rain. A parking garage. A man in a gray suit shouting my name. Then, darkness. I grabbed my head. Michael immediately knelt beside me. What is it? I saw something. His eyes widened. You remembered. Just a flash. What did you see? I don't know. A parking garage. Someone yelling. Before I could finish, another wave of pain hit me. The memory disappeared as quickly as it had arrived. Michael placed a steady hand on my shoulder. That's the first real memory you've had. It vanished. It means your brain is fighting. But the doctors said. He interrupted me. The doctors told Emily recovery was unlikely, not impossible. Those words stopped me cold. So there is still hope. There always was. I stared at the trees, trying desperately to force the memory back. Nothing. Only silence. Michael checked his watch. We can't stay here. Where are we going? I have a safe place. Can I trust you? He smiled sadly. The old Daniel would have asked the same question. We quietly made our way through the woods until we reached an old pickup truck parked beside an abandoned maintenance road. Michael unlocked the driver's door. Before getting in, I glanced back toward the park one last time. Police cars were arriving. Ambulances blocked the entrance. Reporters had already gathered outside the yellow tape. Someone had planned this meeting. Someone had known exactly where I would be. As the truck pulled away, one question echoed through my mind. If Emily truly believed she was protecting me, why had she never warned me that someone wanted me dead? The old pickup rattled down a narrow country road, its engine groaning with every bump. Neither of us spoke for nearly 20 minutes. I kept staring out the passenger window, watching the city disappear behind us. Finally, I broke the silence. Where are we going? Somewhere no one will think to look. You've been hiding for 3 years. Michael gave a slow nod. Long enough to learn who can and can't be trusted. And Emily, his grip tightened on the steering wheel. I don't have an easy answer. Try, he sighed. I don't believe Emily ever wanted you dead. But I believe she made a choice that changed everything. What choice? She chose to protect someone. Victor Langford. I don't know. Then who? Michael looked at me for a moment before turning his eyes back to the road. That's what you were trying to prove before your second accident. A second accident. Every answer only created more questions. An hour later, we turned onto a dirt road hidden behind a line of pine trees. At the end of the road stood a weathered wooden cabin overlooking a small lake. It looked abandoned. Michael parked the truck. "We're here." Inside, the cabin was surprisingly clean. There was electricity, bottled water, canned food, and several locked filing cabinets. "You've been living here, off and on, for 3 years, when necessary." He walked to one of the cabinets and unlocked it. Inside were dozens of folders labeled with names, dates, and photographs. One folder immediately caught my attention. Emily Carter. I stared at it. "You've been investigating my wife." Michael slowly closed the drawer. "I've been investigating everyone." "Open it." "No." "Why not?" "Because if you read it now, you'll make decisions based on emotion instead of facts. My wife has lied to me from the day I woke up." "I know." "Then let me see it." Michael shook his head. "Not until you understand the whole picture." Frustration boiled inside me. "You keep telling me half the story, and I'm trying to keep you alive." The room fell silent. For the first time, I noticed several security camera monitors sitting on a desk near the window. Different roads, different parking lots, different buildings. Michael had been watching far more than just me. "How many people are involved in this?" He looked at the screens. "More than either of us expected." That evening, Michael cooked soup while I searched the cabin. Near the fireplace, I found an old framed photograph. It showed 3 people: me, Michael, and Emily. We were all laughing. Emily had one arm around my shoulders while Michael held a fishing rod. It looked like a perfect weekend with close friends. I picked up the picture. We were all friends. Michael smiled sadly. "The best of friends." "Then what happened?" "You discovered something, and everything changed." He set the soup on the table. "The day you found those financial records, you stopped trusting everyone. Even Emily. You trusted her more than anyone. Then why hide things from me?" Michael hesitated. "Because you started suspecting someone close to you was feeding information to Victor Langford." A cold feeling spread through my chest. "You thought it was Emily." "I don't know. You wrote it in your journal." "My journal." Michael disappeared into another room before returning with a worn black notebook. "This belongs to you." I stared at it. The cover was scratched and faded. Inside the first page were 2 words written in my own handwriting: "If forgotten." Below them was another sentence: "Trust no one until you remember why." I slowly turned the page. The writing was unmistakably mine. The first entry was dated nearly 3 years earlier. "Someone inside my own home is lying to me. I don't have proof yet, but my instincts have never been this strong." My heart pounded. The next page continued: "Emily says I'm becoming paranoid. Maybe she's right, or maybe she's trying to stop me from asking the right questions." I stopped reading. My hands were shaking. I had written those words. Not Michael, not a stranger, me. If they were true, then I had doubted my own wife long before either accident happened. Outside, thunder rumbled across the dark sky. Rain began striking the cabin roof. Michael looked toward the window. "They found us faster than I expected." "What?" He pointed toward one of the security monitors. A pair of headlights appeared at the end of the dirt road leading to the cabin. Then another, and another. 3 black SUVs slowly rolled through the trees with their headlights turned off. Michael's face went pale. "They're here." He grabbed the journal, the flash drive, and a handgun from the cabinet. He handed me the journal and the flash drive. "Whatever happens, don't let them take these." "What about you?" "I'm buying you time." A loud engine echoed outside. The SUVs stopped less than 50 yards from the cabin. Doors opened. Dark figures stepped into the rain. One of them raised a flashlight toward the cabin windows. Michael looked straight into my eyes. "They're not here to scare you this time. They're here to finish what they started." Part 2 continued. A heavy fist slammed against the front door. Bang, bang, bang. "Open the door." The voice was deep, calm, and confident. Not the voice of a police officer. Not the voice of someone asking for help. It was the voice of someone who already believed he was in control. Michael motioned for me to stay silent. Another loud knock shook the cabin. "We know you're in there, Michael." My pulse raced. "How do they know?" I whispered. "They've been tracking us." "With what?" "I don't know." Michael switched off every light inside the cabin. Darkness swallowed the room. The only illumination came from flashes of lightning outside. Another voice echoed through the rain. "Daniel, you don't know who you're with." I froze. They knew my name. Michael leaned close. "They're trying to separate us." "Maybe they're telling the truth." "They're not." "How can you be sure?" Because if they wanted to help you, they wouldn't have shown up with rifles. A loud crash exploded through the cabin as a side window shattered. Glass scattered across the wooden floor. Someone was coming in. Michael grabbed my arm. Back door. Now. We ran through the kitchen and burst into the rain. The cold air hit me like ice. Behind us came another crash. They're inside, someone shouted. Michael led me toward a narrow trail behind the cabin. The rain quickly erased our footprints. We ran for nearly 5 minutes before reaching an abandoned boathouse beside the lake. Inside, Michael pushed an old fishing boat away from the dock. We're crossing. In this weather, we don't have a choice. We climbed into the boat just as flashlight beams swept across the shoreline behind us. They're over there, a voice yelled. The engine coughed twice before finally starting. Michael pushed the throttle forward. The boat cut through the dark water. Rain hammered against our faces. Halfway across the lake, a bright light suddenly appeared behind us. Another boat. They've got us, I said. Michael looked over his shoulder. They're faster. The distance between us began shrinking. Then, bang, a bullet struck the water only a few feet from our boat. Another followed. Then another. They're shooting. Michael steered sharply to the left. The boat bounced violently over the waves. I nearly lost my balance. Stay down, he shouted. I crouched as low as possible. The flash drive dug into my pocket. The journal was soaked beneath my jacket. Those two items suddenly felt more valuable than my own life. Another shot echoed across the lake. The windshield shattered. Michael ducked, struggling to keep control. A memory flashed through my mind. Rain, a steering wheel, someone yelling, brake. The image disappeared almost instantly. I grabbed my head. No. What happened? Michael asked. I remembered something. What? A car? Rain? Someone was with me. Who? I couldn't see their face. Michael's expression changed. You're getting closer. The pursuing boat was now less than 50 yards away. One of the men stood up, aiming directly at us. Before he could fire, bright blue lights suddenly appeared on the opposite shore. Police. The gunman hesitated. The pursuing boat immediately turned away, disappearing into the darkness before reaching the dock. Michael slowed our boat as we reached the far side of the lake. We climbed onto the muddy bank, both soaked and exhausted. For several moments, neither of us spoke. Finally, I looked at him. They ran from the police. Michael nodded. That tells us something. What? They're powerful enough to hunt you. He looked back across the dark water. But not powerful enough to do it in front of witnesses. As police sirens echoed in the distance, another question filled my mind. If Victor Langford had enough influence to cover up millions of dollars, who was he still afraid of? Part 2 continued. The police sirens grew louder with every passing second. Michael grabbed my arm before I could step toward them. We're leaving. Why? They're the police. So were the officers who closed your brake line investigation in less than 48 hours. You think they're involved? I think we don't know who we can trust. His answer was, enough. We slipped back into the trees just as patrol cars reached the lakeside dock. From behind the brush, I watched officers surround the abandoned shoreline. Flashlights swept across the water, but no one searched the woods behind them. Almost as if they already knew we wouldn't be there. An hour later, we reached an abandoned church at the edge of a small farming town. Its stained glass windows were cracked, and the wooden pews were covered in dust. Michael pushed open a hidden door behind the old altar. A narrow staircase led into a basement. I stopped halfway down. The room below looked less like a shelter and more like an investigation headquarters. Maps covered the walls. Photographs were connected by red strings. Bank records, newspaper articles, and surveillance pictures filled several corkboards. In the center of the largest board was a photograph of Victor Langford. Surrounding it were dozens of familiar faces. Lawyers, judges, police officers, business executives. Then my eyes landed on another photograph. Emily. A knot formed in my stomach. Her picture wasn't connected directly to Victor. Instead, a red string connected her photograph to mine. What does this mean? I asked quietly. Michael walked beside me. It means she was never proven to be part of the conspiracy. But you were watching her. Because someone kept leaking your movements. And you thought it was her. I thought everyone was a suspect. He handed me another folder. This is everything we know. I opened it slowly. Inside were copies of phone records. Most belonged to Emily. There were hundreds of calls. One number appeared more often than any other. The contact name wasn't listed. Only a series of digits. What number is this? Michael's expression darkened. We've never been able to identify the owner. When was the last call? He looked at the file. The morning of your second accident. A cold wave passed through me. So she called this person just hours before I lost my memory. Yes. Does she know who tried to kill me? I honestly don't know. For the first time since waking up in the hospital, I wished my memories would return all at once. Living with fragments was torture. Every answer uncovered another mystery. Every clue raised another question. Michael walked to a metal cabinet in the corner. I've been saving this until the right time. He removed a sealed evidence bag. Inside was a broken smartphone. It's yours. I stared at it. The screen was shattered. The back cover was burned. It was recovered from your SUV after the second crash. Can it be repaired? I never found anyone I trusted enough. I carefully held the damaged phone. The instant my fingers touched it, a violent headache exploded through my skull. I stumbled backward. The basement disappeared. For one brief moment, I wasn't standing in an old church anymore. I was inside an underground parking garage. Rain echoed outside. Emily stood beside me. She was crying. You have to stop this, Daniel. If I stop now, they'll destroy us. They'll kill you. They already tried. Then another man stepped out of the shadows. Tall, gray suit, silver watch. I couldn't see his face. He handed Emily a thick envelope. She looked horrified. What is this? Your future, the man replied. The vision shattered. I gasped and nearly dropped the broken phone. Michael caught my shoulder. What did you see? I struggled to breathe. Emily, what about her? She met someone. Who? I couldn't see his face. Anything else? I closed my eyes, trying to hold onto the fading memory. There was an envelope. What kind of envelope? Brown. I whispered. And she didn't look guilty. I opened my eyes. She looked terrified. Michael remained silent. Finally he spoke. That changes everything. What do you mean? If Emily was being threatened instead of helping them willingly. He never finished the sentence. His phone vibrated. He answered immediately. After only a few seconds, every bit of color drained from his face. What is it? I asked. He slowly lowered the phone. Emily. My heart pounded. What happened? They've taken her. The room went silent. Who? The same people chasing us. I stared at him in disbelief. If they kidnapped her. I looked at Emily's photograph pinned to the investigation board. Then maybe she was never working for them. Michael nodded slowly. Maybe. His voice was barely above a whisper. We've been asking the wrong question all along. The real question wasn't whether Emily had betrayed me. It was whether she had been forced to protect the people who destroyed my life. For several long seconds, I couldn't move. They took Emily. Michael nodded. The call came from one of my contacts in the city. 2 black SUVs forced her car off the road less than 30 minutes ago. My mind went blank. Was she hurt? We don't know. I leaned against the wall, trying to steady myself. Nothing made sense anymore. If Emily had been working with the people behind the attacks, why would they kidnap her? Unless she had stopped cooperating. Or worse, she knew something they couldn't allow anyone else to hear. Michael looked at me carefully. I know what you're thinking. I don't know what to think anymore. He folded his arms. When this started, I believed Emily was hiding the truth because she was involved. And now I think she may have been hiding it because someone gave her no choice. I closed my eyes. Every memory of the past 2 weeks flashed through my mind. Her constant reassurance, the fear behind her smile, the mysterious text messages, the way she panicked whenever someone tried to speak to me. What if none of it had been manipulation? What if she had been desperately trying to keep me alive? Michael walked to a desk covered with maps and satellite photos. He pointed to a warehouse district near the river. My contact believes one of Langford's shell companies owns several empty buildings here. You think they're holding Emily there? It's the best lead we have. Then let's go. Michael didn't move. If we rush in without a plan, we'll both end up dead. I don't care. I do. He looked me straight in the eyes. Daniel, you're the only person who can expose them now. I looked down at the flash drive in my hand. The evidence, the journal, the notebook, everything suddenly felt much heavier. If she's innocent, Michael nodded. We bring her home. Night had fallen by the time we reached the edge of the industrial district. The warehouses stood in complete darkness except for one. A faint light glowed through its second-floor windows. Michael parked several blocks away. No headlights from here. We continued on foot, keeping to the shadows. The building was surrounded by a chain-link fence. 2 security guards stood near the main entrance. Neither wore a company uniform. Both carried radios. Michael handed me a small pair of binoculars. Second floor. I raised them. Inside one of the windows, I saw a chair. A woman sat tied to it. Her head was lowered. Long brown hair covered part of her face. Emily. She was alive. Relief flooded through me. Then a man stepped into the room. Tall. Gray suit. Silver watch. The same man from my memory. I couldn't see his face clearly, but something inside me tightened. I know him, I whispered. You remembered, not his name, but you've seen him before. I nodded slowly. He was there, before the accident. The man placed a folder on the table in front of Emily. Even from a distance, I could tell she refused to look at it. He said something. She shook her head. He slammed both hands onto the table. Emily flinched but didn't speak. Michael lowered the binoculars. We need to know what they're saying. How? He reached into his backpack and removed a small directional microphone. I planted this across the street years ago. You've had this place under surveillance. I've suspected it for a long time. Within seconds, voices crackled through a pair of headphones. The man spoke first. This is your last chance. Emily's voice was weak but steady. I already told you. You'll tell Daniel exactly what we've instructed. No, if you don't. There was a long pause. He dies. My heart stopped. Emily answered through tears. I've lied to him for 2 years. You'll lie one more time. I can't. You don't have a choice. The man laughed softly. You lost that privilege the day your husband discovered our accounts. I looked at Michael. Neither of us said a word. Everything I believed about Emily was collapsing. She hadn't been protecting herself. She had been protecting me. The man's voice returned. When Daniel wakes up with no memories, you tell him the doctors expect a full recovery. Emily cried. Why? Because hope keeps him obedient. And if he remembers, he won't live long enough to tell anyone. A sharp pain exploded behind my eyes. Suddenly, another memory returned. I was standing in my office. Emily burst through the door, terrified. Daniel, someone followed me home. I grabbed my coat. Did they say anything? She nodded, crying. They said if you don't stop investigating, they'll make me watch you die. The memory vanished. I stumbled backward. Michael caught me before I fell. What happened? I remembered. What? They threatened Emily before the accident. Michael closed his eyes. So she was telling the truth. I looked back through the binoculars. Emily was still sitting in the chair. Broken, exhausted, but even now, she was refusing to betray me. And for the first time since waking up in the hospital, I realized I had spent weeks doubting the one person who had been risking everything to save my life. I lowered the binoculars, my hands shaking. She's innocent. Michael didn't answer immediately. Instead, he kept listening through the headphones. Inside the warehouse, the man in the gray suit pulled out a pistol and calmly placed it on the table in front of Emily. You have one last opportunity, he said. Emily stared at him without speaking. He leaned closer. Tell us where Daniel is. I don't know. He smiled. I don't believe you. I haven't spoken to him. A loud slap echoed through the room. I instinctively stepped forward. Michael grabbed my shoulder. No, they're hurting her. If you rush in now, they'll kill both of you. Every instinct screamed at me to ignore him. But he was right. I forced myself to stay hidden. The man picked up the pistol again. You're still protecting him. Emily slowly looked up. I made a promise. What promise? That I'd never let him pay for my mistake. My mistake. The words hit me harder than the slap. Michael rewound the recording. Listen carefully. Emily repeated the sentence. I'll never let him pay for my mistake. What mistake? I whispered. Michael frowned. I don't know. Before either of us could say another word, another voice entered the room. A deep, familiar voice. That's enough. The man in the gray suit immediately stepped aside. A second figure walked into view. Older, perfectly tailored black suit, silver hair, confident smile. The moment I saw his face, a violent pain exploded. Inside my head, images flashed one after another. A luxury office, stacks of financial records, Victor Langford extending his hand toward me. Congratulations on the partnership. Another memory, Victor smiling while photographers took pictures. Then, his smile disappeared. You've seen something you shouldn't have. Another flash, Emily crying, Victor placing a folder on his desk. Your husband has 2 choices. I heard my own voice. I'll expose every one of you. Victor's cold reply echoed inside my mind. Then I'll destroy everything you love. The memories vanished. I nearly collapsed. Michael caught me. You remembered. It was Victor. You know him. He threatened us. My breathing became heavy. He wasn't trying to buy my silence. I looked through the warehouse window again. He was trying to buy Emily's. Inside, Victor slowly walked around Emily's chair. You've disappointed me. Emily said nothing. I protected you for years. I never asked you to. No, Victor smiled. But you accepted my protection. Emily finally looked him in the eyes. I accepted it because you said Daniel would live. Victor laughed. And he did. She shook her head. You lied. I changed my mind. My fists clenched. Everything suddenly became clear. Emily hadn't hidden my diagnosis because she wanted to control me. She had hidden it because Victor convinced her that if I believed my memories could return naturally, I would stop digging for the truth. She had sacrificed my trust. To save my life. Victor leaned closer. Daniel will come for you. Emily smiled weakly. No, he loves you. Not anymore. Victor raised an eyebrow. He thinks I betrayed him. A tear rolled down Emily's cheek. And that's exactly how I wanted it. Silence filled the warehouse. Even Michael looked stunned. Emily had willingly allowed me to hate her. Because she believed it was the only way to keep me alive. I felt something break inside me. Every accusation, every doubt, every angry thought I'd had since finding those discharge papers. She had carried them all alone. Just so I could survive. Victor checked his watch. He'll come. Emily slowly closed her eyes. I hope he doesn't. Victor smiled. We'll see. He turned toward the guards. Search every road leading into the district. As they rushed out of the warehouse, Michael quietly packed the surveillance equipment. We're out of time. I looked at him. What are we going to do? He met my eyes. We're going to finish what you started 3 years ago. I reached into my pocket and gripped the flash drive containing the evidence. This wasn't just about exposing corruption anymore. It wasn't even about recovering my memories. It was about saving the woman who had spent 2 years sacrificing her own reputation to keep me alive, and this time, I wasn't going to let her fight alone. Michael spread a blueprint of the warehouse across the hood of the truck. I've been inside once before, he said. There are 3 entrances. The front is heavily guarded. The loading dock has cameras. The only blind spot is an old maintenance tunnel that runs beneath the east side of the building. How do you know? I helped inspect this place years ago when it was abandoned. He pointed to a narrow passage on the map. If we're lucky, it'll still be open. If we're not, he looked at me. Then this becomes a suicide mission. I didn't hesitate. I'm going. Michael let out a long breath. I knew you'd say that. 20 minutes later, we reached the rusted entrance to the tunnel. Hidden beneath overgrown weeds was a steel hatch barely visible in the darkness. Michael pulled it open with a loud metallic groan. A damp smell rose from below. This leads directly under the warehouse. He handed me a small flashlight. No unnecessary talking. We climbed down the ladder. The tunnel was cold, silent, and ankle-deep in water. Every step echoed through the narrow passage. Halfway through, I noticed fresh footprints in the mud. We're not the first people down here, I whispered. Michael nodded. They've started using the tunnel. We switched off our flashlights and continued in near darkness. At the end of the passage, a metal grate overlooked a storage room inside the warehouse. Voices echoed just beyond the wall. Michael carefully lifted the grate. No guards. We slipped inside. The warehouse was much larger than it had appeared from outside. Rows of shipping containers stretched across the floor. Forklifts stood abandoned beneath hanging lights. From upstairs came the muffled voices of Victor and his men. Michael pointed toward a staircase. Emily's room is on the 2nd floor. We moved silently between the containers. Then, a familiar voice stopped me cold. Daniel. I turned. An older security guard stared at me in disbelief. His flashlight illuminated my face. It's really you. Before I could react, Michael struck the guard with the handle of his flashlight. The man collapsed unconscious. You knew him, Michael whispered. I don't remember. Michael looked down at the unconscious guard. He recognized you. Another piece of my forgotten life. Another person I couldn't remember. We reached the 2nd floor without raising the alarm. The hallway contained 4 offices. The 3rd door was slightly open. I carefully looked inside. Emily was still tied to the chair. 2 guards stood nearby. Victor was gone. Michael silently counted with his fingers. 3, 2, 1. He tossed a metal wrench down the hallway. The loud crash echoed through the building. Both guards rushed out to investigate. The instant they disappeared, we slipped into the room. Emily. Her eyes widened. Daniel. Tears instantly filled them. You shouldn't be here. I came for you. No. She shook her head desperately. You have to leave. I'm getting you out. They're expecting you. Michael quickly cut the ropes around her wrists. Emily grabbed my arm. You don't understand. Then explain. They already know about the flash drive. My heart skipped a beat. What? They've always known. Michael froze. That's impossible. Emily looked directly at him. Someone betrayed us. The room fell silent. My mind raced. Only 3 people had known about the flash drive. Me, Michael, and, before the thought could finish, a slow clap echoed from the hallway. Victor Langford stepped into the doorway, smiling. I've waited a very long time for this reunion. Behind him stood 6 armed men. None of us had anywhere to run. Victor's smile widened. Welcome back, Daniel. He looked at the flash drive in my hand. I believe that belongs to me. Victor's smile never wavered. 6 armed men surrounded the doorway, their weapons aimed directly at us. For a brief moment, no one moved. Then Victor spoke. I'll make this simple. Give me the flash drive, and the 3 of you walk out alive. Michael laughed. You've made that promise before. Victor's expression hardened. And you still don't learn. He nodded toward one of the guards. The man stepped forward, pointing his rifle at Emily. Victor looked at me. You have 10 seconds. I tightened my grip on the flash drive. 9. Emily slowly shook her head. Daniel, don't. 8. If he gets that drive, everything we've sacrificed is over. 7. Michael whispered, he's bluffing. Victor smiled. I assure you, I'm not. Without warning, he pulled a second pistol from beneath his jacket and fired. Bang! The bullet struck the wall less than an inch from Emily's head. Chunks of concrete exploded behind her. She didn't scream. She simply closed her eyes. Victor lowered the pistol. Next one won't miss. Every muscle in my body tensed. I had only one chance. I raised the flash drive into the air. Victor smiled. Smart choice. Then, instead of handing it to him, I threw it across the warehouse. It disappeared between 2 massive shipping containers. Victor's smile vanished. Find it. His men scattered in every direction. Michael reacted instantly. Run. He tackled the nearest guard while I grabbed Emily's hand. Gunfire erupted through the warehouse. Bullets tore through wooden crates and shattered windows. Alarms began screaming overhead. Red emergency lights flashed across the walls. The entire building erupted into chaos. We sprinted down the hallway as guards shouted behind us. Halfway to the stairs, another memory slammed into me. I stopped. Emily looked back. Daniel, I remember this hallway. What? I've been here before. The images came faster now. 3 years earlier, I stood outside Victor's office holding a folder filled with financial records. Inside, Victor was arguing with someone. The voice, it belonged to a woman. Emily. No, she was saying. I won't spy on my husband. Victor calmly replied, you don't have a choice. He slid a photograph across the desk. I couldn't see it clearly then. Now I could. It was a picture of Emily's younger sister. Victor smiled. One phone call, and she disappears forever. The memory ended. I gasped. Emily grabbed my shoulders. What happened? They threatened your sister. Tears filled her eyes. You remember. You were never working for Victor. I was trying to keep my family alive. Another explosion echoed below us. Smoke began filling the hallway. Michael appeared around the corner, coughing heavily. They've locked the exits. There has to be another way. There is. Emily looked toward the end of the corridor. Victor's private elevator. Michael frowned. It needs a keycard. Emily slowly reached into the sleeve of her torn jacket. Hidden beneath the fabric was a thin magnetic card. She stared at it. I've carried this for 2 years. She handed it to me. Waiting for the day you finally remembered enough to end this. I took the keycard. For the first time since waking up in the hospital, everything felt different. I still didn't have all my memories. But I finally knew one thing with absolute certainty. Emily had never betrayed me. She had sacrificed my trust. To save my life. Now it was my turn to save hers. The private elevator was hidden behind a steel security door at the end of the hallway. Smoke drifted through the corridor as alarms echoed throughout the warehouse. I slid the keycard through the reader. A green light flashed. Access granted. The heavy door unlocked with a loud click. Inside, Michael shouted. The 3 of us rushed into the elevator just as another burst of gunfire echoed behind us. I slammed the close button. The doors slowly began to shut. Then a hand forced its way between them. Victor. His face was no longer calm. For the first time, I saw fear. He shoved the doors apart and aimed his pistol directly at me. You've already forgotten once, Daniel. He smiled coldly. You can forget again. Before he could pull the trigger, Emily grabbed a metal fire extinguisher from the wall and swung it with every ounce of strength she had. It crashed into Victor's arm. The gun flew across the hallway. Michael immediately kicked the weapon out of reach. The elevator doors finally slammed shut. Victor's furious scream echoed through the shaft as we began descending. None of us spoke. We simply listened to our own breathing. When the elevator reached the basement, the doors opened onto a massive underground archive. Rows upon rows of filing cabinets stretched across the room. Computer servers hummed along the far wall. Michael looked around in disbelief. This is it. What? The real accounting records. I stepped toward one of the cabinets and pulled open the top drawer. Inside were hundreds of folders. Fake company names, secret bank transfers, offshore accounts. Every page carried Victor Langford's signature. Emily walked to one of the computers. It's still running. She inserted the flash drive into a USB port. What are you doing? I asked. I'm copying everything. Michael's eyes widened. That'll take several minutes. We don't have several minutes. Emily looked at me. We've spent 3 years trying to expose him. She pointed at the monitor. If we leave now, he'll destroy all of this. I looked at the progress bar. 3%. A loud metallic clang echoed from above. Victor had found another way down. Michael checked the security monitor. They're coming. The progress bar crawled forward. 8%. Footsteps echoed through the underground hallway. Emily never looked away from the screen. 15%. Michael overturned heavy filing cabinets, creating a barricade. We'll hold them here. I searched the room for another exit. There was only one. The elevator. The same one Victor was using. 22%. Gunfire erupted outside the archive. Bullets ripped through the steel door. The barricade shook violently. Emily whispered, almost. 41%. Michael looked at me. If anything happens, it won't. He smiled. You still finish this. Another explosion blew the archive door off its hinges. Smoke poured into the room. Victor stepped through with 4 armed men. His expensive suit was torn. Blood ran down one side of his face. Yet he still smiled. You've been a difficult man to kill, Daniel. I stepped in front of Emily. Victor raised another pistol. This ends tonight. The progress bar reached 73%. Victor looked at Emily. You should have listened. She stared back without fear. I stopped listening to you the day I realized Daniel would never stop fighting. Victor laughed. Then you'll both die together. He raised the gun. At that exact moment, a familiar voice echoed through the smoke. Federal agents, drop your weapons. Victor's smile disappeared. Dozens of armed agents stormed into the archive from a hidden tunnel behind the server room. They weren't local police. They wore jackets marked Federal Investigation Bureau. Nobody moved. Chaos exploded across the room. Victor's men opened fire. Agents returned fire. Michael pulled Emily behind a steel cabinet while I grabbed the flash drive as the computer displayed. Data transfer complete 100%. After everything we'd survived, the evidence was finally safe. But Victor Langford was still standing. And he had no intention of surrendering. Part 2 continued. The underground archive erupted into chaos. Federal agents spread through the room, taking cover behind filing cabinets as gunfire echoed off the concrete walls. Drop your weapon, Victor. One agent shouted. Victor smiled. I've spent 20 years planning for this. He fired twice, forcing the agents back. Michael grabbed my shoulder. Daniel, get Emily out of here. What about you? I'll hold them off. No, we've come too far. Emily suddenly pointed toward a narrow hallway behind the computer servers. Emergency exit. An FBI agent overheard her. Take it. We'll handle this. I looked at Victor one last time. He was slowly backing toward another exit, refusing to surrender. If he escapes, I said, he'll disappear forever. Michael looked at me. Then we stop him. We split up. Emily followed 2 agents toward the emergency tunnel while Michael and I chased Victor through the archive. Victor burst through a steel door into an